Hello and welcome to another episode of Monster Cutie. This week is going to be a little bit different. I've been looking at my portfolio of recent work, and none of it has really jumped out and said, "Hey, hire me! I like drawing things. You want to pay me gobs and gobs of money to draw you things too." So it's weak, and I could use a lot of stuff. And so I thought it would be fun to broadcast me working on my portfolio and working on pieces. So this is going to be a series. I'm going to start with one painting, one digital painting, and then maybe do another one depending on how this goes, and then another one, and so on and so forth as I build my portfolio. And one of my biggest weaknesses is narrative. Even though I do a lot of comics on the side, none of my individual paintings really have a narrative to them. There's no storytelling involved. There's no interaction with an environment. And so that's a big weakness in my portfolio that I know I can work on and I know I can do better. So today we're going to start a painting called Snacking Cutie, which is probably not the title I'm going to go with in the end, but whatever, I needed something to name the file. So I'm starting at 640 by 360. It's a fairly low resolution, and I'm just going to be doing a light sketch, a quick sketch, and then I'll up-res it to full print resolution, 300 DPI, because who knows, if I like it I might want to make prints of it and maybe sell it, or maybe not. I might be embarrassed and want to burn copies of it because I'm so embarrassed. And so I'm going to start off with a sketch. Today we're going to work mostly in black and white, and we'll see how far we get up. You know, I'm going to put in some values and some depth and a little bit of that, but we're going to start off black and white, and then next time we'll add in some color, and then the third time maybe we'll be at a place where we can finish the piece, or maybe not. Not sure how long this is going to go. So alright, so I've got my area of drawing, and when I paint I usually go in focus. I'm not sure what this mode is called. I think it's called focus because the key you use is F. But if you hit F in Photoshop once, you get this nice outline. It covers your entire screen. At least it does on a Mac. I think it's a little bit different on Windows. If you hit F again, your entire screen becomes the dashboard, or the, I don't know what you call it. One of these days I should look up the terms and figure it out. And we're going to start off just painting on the background layer, which is here. Let me move this slider up so you can see everything. Okay, so we're just going to start on the background layer, and I have a general idea of what I want to do. Let's grab a opacity brush here. Let's go with this guy here. So I had this idea of a little monster cutie. Oh, I'm going to be doing lots of cuties because even though I like drawing sexy chicks and monsters and robots, the cuties seem to get a lot of attention. You know, a lot of people like the cuties. They're easy for me to draw. It's something that I like drawing. I don't do nearly enough of them, so I want to do sort of like a finished cutie piece. And I had this idea of a baby cutie with a sock in his mouth, sort of implying that he had eaten a full-sized human. You know, kind of making a cute face next to a big cutie, kind of cheering him on. So what I'm doing now is I'm laying out a grid of thirds, rough thirds, and this will give me my points of interest. The rule of thirds is something you see hear a lot about in photography and sometimes in film. It's loosely based on the golden ratio, which was discovered by, I don't even know because I'm not that well learned, but so I'm gonna, you know, sketch in my little cutie here and the bigger cutie here, and they'll be in a forest, so this will be like maybe like a little clearing that they're in. And I'm keeping it really loose, not even putting in any details. Here's the sock out of his mouth. Maybe this cutie has a big hulking shape. I want him to be really huge. And you know, doing like a hooray! You ate one, a big human. Maybe this cutie has multiple arms, so one of the arms can be patting him on the head. Multiple armed cutie. I don't think I've done one of those yet. Big monstrous shape. And then here's the little guy. And I'm working at web resolution just because it's easy to, it's quick, it's dirty. I don't really need to do anything fancy for a quick and dirty sketch like this. So let's I'll be hitting lots of keyboard shortcuts as I go through this. Put in some basic values just to establish some foreground and some background. Really interested in refining shapes here, although I'm gonna need to do that. Maybe I'll have this will be a big tree trunk, and then maybe there'll be some leaves, maybe a rock. Maybe this will be a rock here. Rook. And I'll put in some sketchy details here right now, just some lines to sort of formalize what I have in mind. Maybe a naughty looking tree, something a gnarly looking tree. That'll give me some fun times to play, some good details to play with textures. Kind of want him more mean looking than cute. I want this guy to be really cute, so we'll have his mouth up here. I don't know if I want the sock to be toe out or end out. Come up with those decisions later, maybe. And his legs. And to denote the size of this guy, I'm going to put his eyes a little bit closer together. So the little guy's eyes are far apart, make him cuter. This guy I want to be sort of bigger, more menacing, slightly darker. He's got big eyes. He's patting him on his head. Good job, good job. Just loose sketching, not really interested in doing too much detail work. Well, I guess the sketching is detailed. Some rocks here. This is a big rock formation. I think eventually I'm gonna have to look at some reference for a clearing, but for now I'm just gonna put in some shapes that I like to help strengthen the composition here. More with the tree trunk. This is just loose sketching, loose sketching. Maybe I want to shrink this a little bit. Alright, so what I'm going to do is make a copy of the background plate, hit Command J or Control J or whatever. This makes an instant copy of that frame. And then I'm gonna shrink it just a little bit, because I want there to be a sense of depth here, and I want to give them some headroom. So headroom is obviously the room above their head, but this will give me a chance to widen out this background area and put in some more details. So it looks like crap right now, I have to admit, but I'm hoping to get a little bit more refinement as we go along here. So if you want to do a squint test, what we can do is zoom way out and see if our composition is strong. So we got our big shape here and our little shape there. We need to gray out the background a little bit more so we can get the definition between the planes of our composition. So obviously we want our two guys in the foreground. Two guys in the foreground. And then the tree here would be a second layer with this rock that would be in the same plane, and then the background elements would be a third plane of existence. Maybe I'll put some stuff up here in front, sort of like we're happening in on an intimate moment between the big monsters. So maybe some bushes here to denote that we're looking through, we're looking into a clearing. We've happened upon a clearing. So let's zoom out and see what that looks like. It's pretty decent in terms of the different levels. And alright, so there are a couple ways to go about doing this. I could up-res it now and start going in and overlaying colors. Or I could design out the monsters a little bit more so that when I up-res it, I'll have some guidelines to build shapes off of, because I'm going to separate this into shapes. How shall I proceed? You know what? Maybe I'm just going to refine the details on the monster before I up-res it. On the monsters before I up-res it. So I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to start on the little guy because I want him to be our star. And whoa, he's got a sock. And I think I'm going to make the sock a little bit bloody eventually. Because I'm a sick, twisted person. Bloop. Okay, there's the sock. It's kind of hanging out. His little beady eyes. And he's gonna have a little tuft of hair. And his arms are gonna be kind of forward, like, ooh! There's his feet. Kind of looks like a weird toad thing. Toad-like thing. And on to the big guy. We're gonna give him big muscles. And some claws. Whee! Work on his shape here. Well, this needs to be... There we go. Of course, the happy arms. Yay! He's doing like a little clapping thing here. He's got big squatty legs. Hooray! You did good. Maybe maybe the little guy is trying to get into the bigger guy's gang. Maybe he has a gang. The big guy, of course, has is brimming with pride, so he's got his eyes closed, going yippee. His chin action. There's some head wrinkle action. Yeah. I want to make sure these guys are in the same plane of existence. So now it looks like they're on the same plane. Yeah, let's figure that out. Okay. Maybe he's drooling a little bit. Okay. I like this. I like where this is going. So the big monster has a monster hat. It's just kind of hanging out here. And the monster hat is smiling with pride too. Although you can't tell because the monster hat is sucking on the big dude's head. Alright, so there we go. We have our detailed sketch of the monsters. We have some crappy detail in the background, what we want. Let's refine this a little bit. Alright, save before we go crazy. Okay, let's put in some more detail in the background. This is a rock. Here's a big stone. Here's our tree with that monstrous hole in it. We'll make this an awkward shaped tree. Alright, so let's save. Let's zoom out and see what we're working with here. Okay. I like it. It's very cute. So let's upsize it and let's see. Let's make the width 17 inches. And we'll go with 300 dpi. Oops, 300 dpi. So you'll see this will bump us up to 5100 by 2869. That's a lot of pixels. That should be perfect for print resolution. The reason I started off 640 by 360, it's 16 by 9, which is HD television resolution, which is kind of like my default resolution these days, just because I like the look of the HD aspect ratio. So here is our high-res composition, and what we're going to do is we're going to work some more in black and white And there are a couple of ways of doing this. Since I have the background plate and the foreground, and the monsters, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to break this into two sections, the background and the foreground. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on the background and turn it into a layer, so it's layer 0. And I'm going to create two folders. One is going to be for the background. I'm going to call it VG. And the other one is going to be for the foreground elements, and I'm just going to call that FG. And I'm going to move the background into that, and we'll call this background sketch. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lasso our dudes. Just a loose lasso. Lasso our dudes. And I'm gonna hit Open Apple J on the Mac. I think, what is that called? It is that command in the layer menu. It's called layer via copy. So I just make a copy of my selection here. So there you go. Oops. There you go. There's another option. So let's do the history. Go back. There's another option called layer via cut, and what that does is, so if I hit Shift and the Apple key and J, now there's a big hole where the monsters used to be. I can do either one. For now, I'll just do the layer via copy, and I'm going to call this foreground sketch, or monster sketch. And I'm going to lock transparency on that and move that into the foreground. And I'm going to go back to the background, and I'm going to start working up some more details in the background with some with the same brush that I've been using. It's sort of a chalk brush that I like to use whenever I'm painting big stuff. And I don't really care about going through the lines because I've preserved the monsters on the top layer. I'm concerned mainly with pushing and pulling shapes and getting a composition that I like. So starting off in black and white allows you to paint with value, and value is very important because if your values are strong and if you're defining good foreground, background, and midground elements with values, when you start putting in your color, then you can really make your composition sing. So that's why I'm concerned with just doing this in black and white for now. I think I'm going to paint over these bushes that I did in the foreground, trying to keep in mind that I will put them in later when I start tightening up this composition. But for now, I want to get rid of them. Just because they are distracting to me. Alright, we're getting some nice ugly tree thing going on here. That's pretty nice. I like where this is going. I will probably have to grab, like I said, grab some reference for some bark and stuff, but for now I like just coming up with some shapes that I like to play with that seem reasonable for trees. Some gnarls here. Maybe I'll put some eyes in the hole here, but I'll save that for detailing later. And I think I'll make this rock have some tree branches curling around it, just because that's always extra creepy when you see that in the woods. It's a monster! It's a monster tree! I'll also put in some ferns and other vegetation as we go, but for now I'm just worried about the biggest forms, the forms that I want to, you know, kind of define our boundaries here. I don't think we're going to be seeing much of the top of the trees. I think it's going to be all trunks and overgrowth and vines and random crap. Save. Yes, maximize compatibility. And let's zoom out a little bit just to see how that's looking. It's a fairly intimate scene. Alright, so we can see how we're painting. I'm just gonna paint in this stuff. Let's get some more dark values down in this background here to push things back. Sometimes you want to use black to bring out foreground elements because your eyes notice black shapes, more detailed shapes. Sometimes you want to use black to push stuff to the background, like I'm doing right now. And we'll make this another tree shape in here. Trees, tree. Trees. Rocks. For the rock, we'll use a different brush. This kind of spatter brush here, and I'll just put in some loose detailing. Let's go back to our chalk brush. Some overgrowth. Let's make this dark void that we don't know what's in there. You'll notice that a lot of the times I will hit the D key, which brings your foreground and background color to black and white, and then the X key switches them. You'll also notice that I swatch a lot around the canvas with the eyedropper. So all you have to do is hit the Option key and swatch away. And when I start laying in the color, you'll notice I do that a lot as well. And it just helps me swatch from the composition right on the palette instead of going over here to the color picker and picking colors. Also, you'll notice when I start doing colors that I always pick my colors from the color picker here, and not from the standard swatches or the sliders. Um, I like the control that I have over the color picker better than the sliders. The sliders, I guess, are more accurate, but the color picker gives me more of I don't know, visual feedback, I guess. Alright, let's turn off the foreground for a little bit, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint through the monsters, and I'll show you why in just a second. But I want to place in these shadows so that I have a good placement for them. But I'm painting them out, and I will explain. Wait a second. Alright, that's good enough. Alright, so save that. Let's click back on the foreground. Okay, so what I like to do when I color things, when I color comics, is I like to separate the background and the foreground so I can paint through the characters. But alright, let me see if I can explain this better. What I generally like to do is isolate the characters from the background. This allows me to concentrate mostly on painting the background and dealing with all the shapes there without having the foreground characters in the way. And then I go back and I work on the foreground characters with all the background, finished. Well, not finished, but a lot of the details in the background, so I can swatch colors from the background and incorporate them into my foreground characters to kind of place them in the scene. So one of the best ways to do that is to cut out your characters using a shape, and that's what I'm going to do here. So let's see, I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to call this guy small dude. What I'm going to do, and this is probably a bass-ackwards way of doing things, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab red, and I'm going to loosely trace the outline of this character. I don't use the shape tool. Sometimes I use the shape tool, but since these are organic characters, I want to have the organic feel of the brush, even though this is all on computer. And we might refine the toes later. We might not. We'll see. Alright, use the paint bucket. Oops. I have all layers turned on. I want to turn that off. Paint bucket, paint bucket, paint bucket, paint bucket, paint bucket. Expand that a little bit. Fill in those lines. I'm not gonna lie, this is time consuming process. Alright, so now we want to turn on the lock transparency and lock position. So when we turn off our sketch, we've got our monster in our environment here. And what happens with this is, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in and paint it in Grayscale. But with the transparency lock, I don't paint outside the borders. So I can do this all day and fill in here and not worry about messing with the background. So this is a quick and dirty way of well, not quick and dirty, but a dirty way of separating your foreground characters from your background so that you can concentrate on one thing at a time. This is one of the great advantages of working digitally as opposed to traditionally, because the only way to really do this in the real world is to cut out a frisket to isolate your parts, or use liquid mask. And I don't know how to do that. So we're not going to do that. So let's do the same thing with the big dude. We'll call him Big Dude. And we'll use our red. Red is a nice contrasty color against this black and white. And we'll get our regular brush here. Now the silhouette will probably change as I paint in more details. That's fine. I can turn off preserve transparency and paint in more details as need be. This is just to get the process started here. Get the thumb there. Hopefully this will all make sense once I start working on the oops, I want to erase it. Hopefully this will all start making sense when I start laying in more details and more colors and that sort of thing. Right now we're worried about getting our sketches done and getting our file set up. So these guys' hands, and even though it looks like I'm painting out all the sketching details, I still have the sketch layer underneath, so I can go back and refer to it when I want to start refining things. So I know this looks like a big hot mess, but trust me, it'll pay off in the end. Or it will continue to look like a big hot mess and I will have wasted your time. Which would be embarrassing and horrible, and also not good for my portfolio. I think I will have some spikes or spines eventually, but for now I'm just doing the round monster cutie shapes because they're easy to play with, and they're easy enough to detail with. So there we go. And let's fill in these lines. Yeah. Alright, nice. There we go. And we'll preserve transparency, lock position, and we will we'll grab this gray here, and we want a lighter gray because we want these two guys to stand out, and we'll fill him with that lighter gray, and we'll fill the small dude with the lighter gray. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Option and Delete, and what that does is it takes your foreground color and fills it in. Option or Alt and Delete. I think the command on a PC is Control and Delete or Alt and Delete. No, it's Alt and Delete on a PC. To get it to swatch the background color, you can hit the squiggly Apple key and delete, or on a PC I think it would be Control and Delete, but you'll have to test it out. So here we go. Easy fill. So there we go. Our monsters are in our scene, kind of, sort of. It appears that we have some red going on in here. What is that from? That is from you. We'll fill that right up. Okay. So we have our monsters in the background, and we have our background sort of started. And I think that's gonna do it for now. I know this looks like a hot mess, but hopefully as we start building in things, it'll start looking better. So thanks for tuning in, and I hope this little experiment of mine is worthwhile, both for you as the viewer and for me as the person who wants a portfolio that doesn't suck. So thanks again, and hope to see you next time. Bye.